When a student accumulates 7 and more sprints, we have to alternate the lesson flow. At the beginning of the lesson, we revise not only the first sprint, but the second one as well. The teacher can use the big training cycle for this purpose. So the student reads the words from the last one to the first one and translates them. The teacher listens to the student and marks the mistakes. The student tries to correct the mistakes with the teacher's help and then translates grammar puzzles created by the teacher and based on the marked words. We repeat these instructions with the second sprint. After that, the teacher has to add new grammar patterns. We recommend adding only 2 of them as the volume of new information decreases. We need more time to focus on revision. After checking homework, the student translates 3-5 sentences before the first pause, or the teacher adds 1-2 new words that need to be trained in grammar puzzles. We don't offer to make dialogues to students of the pre-intermediate level and below. This can slow the general lesson flow down. After working on a small training cycle, we don't go back to the text, but iterate the third and the fourth sprints. After active or passive iteration of the third sprint, we move to the sprint training cycle, which is described in details in one of our videos. Sprint training cycle should be done in every sprint, starting with the third one. Then we iterate the fourth sprint and go back to the text and the small training cycle. The next stage is the 5th and 6th sprints iteration. Unless we have enough time, we don't have to make one more small training cycle. We can move straight to the 7th sprint and iterate it. Sometimes the student can get lost and confused in such number of sprints. The synchronization function can come in handy in this case. When this button is active, the student will be automatically moved to the sprint opened in teacher's account. If the student makes any mistakes in the 7th sprint, there is no need in marking these words and making grammar puzzles. Instead, these words and expressions should be duplicated to the first sprint. So, for example, we click 3 dots, duplicate as a word, OK, and this word appears right in the first sprint. The sprint training cycle is modified in the 7th sprint. The teacher and the student swap their roles. It means that the teacher marks the numbers next to 2 pairs of words, but doesn't take into account any grammar cliches. For example, let's mark 4 next words. The student's task is to make questions using these words and translate teacher's replies into the native language. If the student has difficulties while making the questions, the teacher can suggest the topic or make a question in the student's native language which needs to be translated. If the student makes grammar mistakes, we should add this word to the shower under the section question. For example, 3 dots, shower, question. This way we'll work with all sprints in section more. The teacher chooses one sprint, for example 13, marks it. We need to mark it right here. Put plus, it means it has been revised twice. Then we ask the student to iterate it, mark 4 words, and ask the student to make questions and translate your answers. The choice of the sprint can depend on the number of times it has already been worked on. So it's up to the teacher which sprint to revise. Traditionally, we finish the lesson revising today's words.